The Welcome Arnold building in Cranston, Rhode Island, was part of the Rhode Island State Hospital, otherwise known as the Institute of Mental Health. This building had sat abandoned amongst a very active campus of prisons and psychiatric hospitals on the John O. Pastore Center complex. Driving around the very active campus, this building would always stick out as one of the only abandoned buildings at the time, always making one wonder what mysteries were inside. Welcome Arnold was built in 1936 by the Work Progress Administration. The building housed male patients. At some point, it stopped being a hospital and became a homeless shelter. The Rhode Island State Hospital opened in 1870. At that time, it consisted of 18 wood-framed buildings. Patients sent to Howard, as it was called, were considered to be too sick to be helped, and were often forgotten and left there. The Howard complex was named after the family Howard, whose farm was on the land sold to the state to build the asylum. Here's steam coming up the staircase from a bursted pipe. This steam eventually engulfed the entire building, causing its rapid deterioration. The entire campus is still heated using steam. The steam is carried through underground tunnels, one of which I explore later in this video. I now find myself atop the building's cupola. I try to keep low so that I'm not seen. There's always tons of people driving around this campus because most of the buildings are still active. Seen here is the abandoned Gloria McDonald's women's prison. Over there is the Pinal building forensic unit, still active at the time. In the distance here is T.F. Green Airport. Let's now go from the top of the building to the underground, walking the tunnel towards Gloria McDonald. That sound in the background is from the steam pipe. This is the main front entrance to the building. The building is named after Welcome Arnold, who was a prominent man from Providence, perhaps most known for plotting the capture of the HMS Gaspee. As noted earlier, This is just one building as a part of the much larger John O. Pastore Center complex. The Pastore Center is named after John O. Pastore, former governor of Rhode Island. He was actually the first ever Italian American to be elected as a governor, and the first ever Italian American to be elected to the U.S. Senate. He was also known for his advocacy for the mentally ill. The Pastore Center is a unique and interesting place because it houses all of the state prisons, the state psychiatric hospital, juvenile detention facility, formerly housed the almshouse, and today houses the largest state shelter for men. So it essentially has all of its state welfare institutions on one campus, making for an interesting collection of buildings and history to be discovered. The Rhode Island State Hospital has in the past suffered from overcrowding. Built to house 2,000 patients, it housed over 3,000. Rumors went around that patients were being chained in the underground tunnel system. In the 1930s, the Works Progress Administration built 25 new buildings, most built with red bricks in the Georgian Revival style. One of these being Welcome Arnold. Despite the new buildings, overcrowding and bad conditions came back by 1947. In 1949, an expert described conditions as shameful yet relatively good compared with mental hospitals across the country. It's always been a challenge trying to find past stories and the history of the Howard complex. One source of information is an expose done by the Providence Journal in the 1950s, written by Jack Thompson, called Problems Are Complex. It reads, "The State Hospital for Mental Diseases at Howard is an enormous place with complex problems. It has about 3,400 patients and 1,250 employees, a bigger population than that of Hopkinton or Narragansett or Gloucester. It has 17 patients' buildings and a total of 77 wards. It even has a man hired to do nothing but replace burned out light bulbs. It has its own vocabulary: eloper for a runaway, tripping for a tour of the wards, untidy for incontinent patients, and assaultive for those who might hit you over the head." "This place is an ocean," says Dr. Sidney S. Goldstein, hospital superintendent. "You never find out all there is to know about it." Side note, this blue room was likely a seclusion room. Back to the article. The patients themselves represent all degrees of mental illness. Some of them, chatting as they walk down Howard Avenue, could pass for normal in any company. Others have become vegetables who squat in ward corners. Pinal Building is home to one man who who was admitted to the mental hospital 54 years ago. This institution was examined by a reporter for 1 week. During the survey, 14 patients' buildings were visited at least once. Several received a second visit. Records were examined. Patients, attendants, hospital officials were interviewed. The hospital is divided into 3 general sections for patients, treatment, each with 10 to 12 doctors. The smallest, with 260 patients, is known as the intensive care section. These patients who live in the Adolph Meyer building are considered most likely to get well. The section for geriatric, old age patients, those who need both medical and mental treatment, takes in about 1,100 patients. They are housed in the medical building, the Benjamin Rush building. For tubercular cases, the 2 new geriatric buildings, the A building and part of the B building. The biggest group, close to 2,000, are in the continued service section. In general, their outlook is not too hopeful, and many of them have been in the institution for years. By 1962, the General Hospital and State Hospital for Mental Diseases merged, becoming the Rhode Island Medical Center, and then later becoming the IMH, or Institute of Mental Health. Today, the IMH is known as Eleanor Slater Hospital and is the state hospital for Rhode Island. This building was always full of pigeons. Going by the porch, I try to be stealthy so that I'm not seen by the still active Pinal building. At the time, that was still the active forensic unit for the state of Rhode Island. Looking out of the back window, you get a view of the Gloria McDonald building, formerly known as the Jonathan Arnold building. It was originally built as pretty much an exact copy of Welcome Arnold, but was then later converted into a woman's prison. It then sat abandoned. I'll explore that in another video. This area is where the patient's clothes would have been stored. Down at the basement level, it's pretty much pitch black, but this is the only area where you can find stuff left behind. I assume a lot of this stuff is from when it was a homeless shelter, but I cannot be sure. In 2022, the cupola was removed from the top of the building due to fears that its deterioration might cause it to fall off. It was a surreal experience walking next to it down here on the ground level. It looked way bigger than when I was up there on the roof. It ended up marking the start of the end for Welcome Arnold, because just a few years later, in 2025, the entire building was demolished, and today nothing remains.